we're going to talk about this little scene that took place after the Fever game last night.
So, lads, there is a WNBA team that have been very much made it clear that they want Caitlin Clark.
In New York, between Sandy Branadello and Caitlin Clark, the New York Liberty.
Or they're eventually going to want Caitlin Clark. Along those lines, they've made it very clear. And that team is the New York Liberty.
Wait, what just happened in that tunnel?
And the agent, that is what makes this so interesting.
And today, we have just seen the New York Liberty players after the game meeting up with Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark, fresh off a brutal loss with the Indiana Fever, walks into the tunnel and suddenly she stops. Not for a coach, not for a teammate, but to dap up a player from the New York Liberty. And here's the wild part. Rumors have already started swirling. Could Clark be planning an escape from the Fever?
By the way, Caitlin Clark looks unbelievably happy talking to these folks. But this is how it starts in sports.
It is Stewie. It is Sabrina Ionescu. There is Sandy Brandolo.
Before we get into what this moment really means, you need to understand what's been boiling beneath the surface. This season hasn't been easy for Caitlin Clark. She came in as the most hyped rookie in WNBA history and landed on one of the worst teams in the league. The chemistry, off, the coaching, questionable. And some of her own teammates, not exactly making her feel welcome. Now fans are starting to whisper something that once felt impossible. Would Clark ever leave Indiana?
The Indiana Fever, you're on notice. You're on notice. You better recognize what you've got.
Caitlin Clark may be the rookie, but she's been treated like anything but the star of the team.
It's so obvious she don't know what she's doing. She don't know what she's doing with this kind of talent.
From being iced out of key plays to questionable substitutions that pull her at crucial moments, fans have noticed, and they're not quiet about it. Clips have gone viral showing Clark walking off the court without so much as a glance from her teammates. No high fives, no encouragement, just silence. And then there was the bench moment, where Aaliyah Boston and others are laughing and joking, while Caitlin sits at the end, isolated. That one image said more than a dozen interviews ever could. People started asking, is this just rookie hazing? Or is something deeper going on behind the scenes? Because when your franchise player, the one selling out arenas and putting your team on the map, isn't being protected, isn't being featured, and clearly isn't vibing with the locker room, you've got a serious problem. And this brings us back to that tunnel moment in New York. Because to some fans, that handshake didn't look casual, it looked like a signal. Now let's talk about the New York Liberty. One of the most dominant teams in the WNBA, a franchise built around stars like Breanna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, and Jonquel Jones. They're stacked with talent, they have real chemistry, and they play in the heart of the media capital of the world. So when Caitlin Clark stops in the tunnel to share a moment with a Liberty player, after a crushing loss, it's not just a handshake. It's a moment fans are reading between the lines. Because let's be real, if there was ever a team tailor-made for Clark's skill set and brand power, it's the Liberty. They have spacing, they move the ball, they shoot threes, and most importantly, their stars know how to share the spotlight. Clark wouldn't have to carry a struggling team on her back. She could do what she does best: shoot, facilitate, and entertain on the biggest stage possible. And here's where it gets really interesting. Whispers of a trade or future free agency move aren't coming from thin air. Agents, insiders, and former players have all hinted that if Indiana doesn't start building around Clark properly, she's going to want out. And sooner than people. Some fans online have even joked that the Liberty are already recruiting her. Others say it's not a matter of if she leaves Indiana, it's a matter of when. And that tunnel moment? To fans who've been watching closely, it looked like the first breadcrumb. If Caitlin Clark were to join the New York Liberty, it wouldn't just be a big move. It would be a landmark shift for the WNBA. Think about it. You take the most talked about player in women's basketball and put her in the biggest media market in the world, alongside Breanna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, and one of the best coached teams in the league. That's not just a contender. That's a dynasty in the making. Every game would be primetime, every arena would be sold out, and the storylines? Endless. Rivalries would get sharper, ratings would explode, and the WNBA, still fighting for national attention, would finally have the kind of mainstream buzz that turns casual fans into diehards. Clark in New York wouldn't just elevate the Liberty. It would raise the league's profile in ways we haven't seen since the early 2000s. And from a marketing standpoint, it's a goldmine. Sponsorships, media deals, merch sales, Clark's move to a major market team would put... But there's a deeper layer to this too. Because while some fans are dreaming of this super team scenario, others are asking, should one player have this much power? Is the league ready for a world where a rookie can influence trades, rotations, and even where she plays next? Or is this just the new era of athlete empowerment, where stars take control of their careers, just like we've seen in the NBA? While the trade rumors swirl and fans fantasize about a blockbuster move to New York, Indiana is feeling the pressure. The Fever didn't just draft Caitlin Clark for her talent. They built their entire season around her. She's the face of the franchise, the ticket seller, the headline. But lately, it looks like the organization is scrambling. They've been criticized for how they're using her or not using her in key moments. Analysts are calling out poor rotations, lack of defensive support, and even suggesting the coaching staff is in over its head. And it's not just fans noticing. Media insiders have hinted that Clark's camp isn't thrilled with how things are going in Indiana. There's been talk, quiet, behind-the-scenes talk, about long-term fit, team chemistry, and whether this situation is setting her up to thrive or fail. The Fever are now in a tough spot. If they try to change too much to please Clark, they risk alienating veterans and upsetting team balance. But if they don't make changes, they risk losing the most marketable player they've had in decades. So what do? They have to walk a razor-thin line, publicly supporting Clark while also holding the locker room together, silencing trade rumors without ignoring them, and most of all, proving they're serious about building a championship-caliber team around her. Because if they don't, the idea of Clark leaving might shift from fantasy to reality. The reactions to the Caitlin Clark drama have been loud and divided. Some fans are all in on the idea of Clark taking control of her destiny. They say, she's a generational talent. She deserves to be on a team that maximizes her skills and protects her legacy. And honestly, it's hard to argue with that. She's changed the way people talk about women's basketball. Why? Her jersey sales are off the charts. Her highlights go viral every night. She's not just a player, she's a movement. So when fans hear trade rumors, they don't get upset. They get excited. Because the idea of Clark joining forces with other stars in a city like New York feels like the beginning of something big. But others, they're not so sure. They say, hold on. She's a rookie. She hasn't even played a full season. Why are we already talking trades, front office decisions, and media power plays? To them, this isn't athlete empowerment. It's entitlement. And they worry that this shift in tone could hurt the league's image, creating tension between stars and franchises too early in their careers. The media? They're eating it up. Every tweet, every rumor, every sideline moment becomes a headline. And the league? Quietly, they might love it too. Because whether you love her or not, Caitlin Clark has made the WNBA relevant in ways we haven't seen before. She's sparked debates, sold out arenas, driven viewership numbers through the roof. And no matter where she plays, Indiana, New York, or somewhere else, one thing is crystal clear. She's not just the future of the league. She's the center of it. So, what does the future hold for Caitlin Clark? Will she stay loyal to Indiana and try to turn things around? Or will the bright lights and big opportunities of New York prove too tempting to resist? One thing's for sure, this story is far from over. Clark isn't just playing basketball anymore, she's navigating a complex world of business, branding, and power. She holds all the cards. If Indiana wants to keep their star, they'll need to do more than just say the right things. They'll have to back it up with real changes. Because in today's sports world, talent alone isn't enough. It's about fit, support, and vision. And if a franchise can't provide that, the player moves on. Caitlin Clark's journey is a sign of the times. Athletes aren't just part of the game anymore. They're shaping its future. And as fans, we get to watch it all unfold. Where will Caitlin be next season? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, the WNBA's biggest star is ready to take control, and no one is standing in her way.